less errors. So now let's talk about, I'm just going to do a random document here because you guys can look over the rest of this on your own. Let's just say this. You get to it. And as a former escrow officer, I would say this is your final written agreement between yourself and the lender. So if your lender promised you that AMG Benz, make sure you got in the parking lot. Otherwise, it never happened. As a signing agent, this is your notice of no oral agreements. It does state here in the bold print that this is your written loan agreement, or represents your final agreement between the parties. It does state a few more statements and paragraphs, but please read this. I need your signature and date in the middle. So if you're repeating something, you're okay. But I would keep it very minimal because, again, they're good with everything for the most part. So I would just say, this is your notice of no oral agreements. Please sign and date here, Mr. Smith. And by the time he's signing, you're getting like a triangle or a circle motion. So then he's going to hand it to a spouse or other signer if their name is on there, of course. And then by that time, I've got my next document in my hand. I'm getting ready to pass the baton. And as my left hand is giving signer number one their document, my right hand is reaching out to collect that previous document. And it's just going to be, like a rowboat motion. But again, you need to kind of slow down to make sure that your certificate is filled out when it comes to you and you have everything. I don't know how much we talk about this later on, but you need to determine when you want to put your parties on notice for notarial ceremonies, the acknowledgement versus jurat, which we don't really cover too much in this course because that's, basic notary 101. Just a random one. We'll move right along. Let's say, okay, Mrs. Doe this time. This is your signature name affidavit. Please look this over. I need your signature here and date right in the middle. And when you're done, I'll finish the notarization. Now, of course, this is one where the lender kind of doesn't give them much wiggle room, but it is common that some lenders will list every version of their name to the left, and they will want the sample signature of that variation on the right. Now, most people are happy to comply, and I would say, okay, I need you to sign as Jane Doe. I need you to sign as Jane Bridget Doe, James Jones, James Jones Doe, JJ Doe. Most people are happy to do that. Now, if the name is completely butchered and misspelled, I would probably put that document to the side. You will quickly realize there's a few documents that you need some resolution to. If your signer is still okay moving forward, that's not a deal breaker, and they haven't said, well, I'm not signing this until I get an answer, then let there be that stack growing, keep moving along. Tell them at the very end, they can call their loan officer, or you can call your hiring party and say, okay, we're done with most of the closing package. We've got these trailing documents that they have some questions on, and then pass the phone, let them, have that relationship and let them lead that conversation with whoever the answer provider is going to be. So with that, I'm going to conclude the loan document presentation. There is more to go through, and that would just be you going through and kind of developing your own speech and how you want to do it. But again, Fab 5 first, and then everything else just kind of handshakes through. So
can I ask you a quick question on the document you have on the screen?
You bet.
So how would you fill out the bottom? So before me on this day personally appeared Jane Doe, known to me or proved to me on the oath of.
Okay. So what form of ID are we going to say in our example? Okay. What did Jane give us?
Okay.
That's actually a Texas form. So Idaho's might be different.
Okay. Yeah. I haven't seen this before. So that's why I just wanted to see. That's what I thought, but I didn't want to, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Through oath of.
It uses Texas notaries every day of their lives. So yeah.
Okay. Okay.
Most of the certificates are the same in most states. The exception, like dead on, is California. Okay. Sometimes they can add to it, but your state may actually have it to where you can't have the oath of or what have you. But Texas is a big state. So all of you, if you're not in Texas, you're going to see this. So if this certificate is not permissible, then you would do what we call a loose certificate. I personally write in here, I'll put see attached certificate, and then I will repeat the same type. So for instance, this is clearly an acknowledgement, not a jurat. So if you do a loose certificate, you have to do like for like. You cannot do a jurat, which is an oath, when this is, otherwise you're UPL, you crossed over. So if this is satisfactory to you in your state, how it would be filled out before me would be your name, personally appeared, and they want to know how were they introduced to you. Oath of would be a credible witness, which usually is not going to apply with most people. So for me, I don't like blank, so I put NA right here.
Okay.
Or through. Some states are very specific in what you can do. Like you can't write, Texas driver's license or whatever. Do not write driver's license numbers in here. I do not know a state that's a requirement in. I know in Texas specifically, you can't have that in your journal. So the best thing is less is more. So I write big. So I usually put TXDL or I'll put GOV''T ID. Where I'm more specific and what was presented to me is in my journal.
Okay.
But again, this is your baby. You can do this as long as it meets your state's requirement and you're consistent throughout this loan package, so the lender's not playing guesswork or whack-a-mole through the pages. Then you do you. I mean, it's just that it's up for you to correct. For me personally, when it says he, she, or they, I usually circle the right pronoun and draw a line through the rest. That's me. I know NNA also teaches that, but again, that's not a deal breaker. The main thing I would say on these certificates, if you leave any blanks or room for anyone to alter it, sometimes they will. And I've got onto a title company from before that tried to change my certificate. I said, you changed. I mean, I'm an officer of the state and then in a limited capacity, and you changed an official record. You can't do that. And I think I scared them for a little bit. But anyways, also your venue, you would want to cross this out, Idaho, an initial, and then put your county or parish and then initial there as well. So, and that's assuming you can still use this.
Do you have a preference as far as doing a swearing of oath before the package and reminding them when you get to that page that this is a page, or do you feel that the flow is better? You just kind of do the oath or the oath as you go on if it's needed and break that up in the package? Because I've seen it both ways and I'm just curious which one works best, beginning or as you're going.
So I'm going to tell you how I do it.
Okay.
And I don't know if there's any states that have a specific requirement that you have to do it at the time. So check in your state's laws first.
Right. Yeah.
But what I do at the very beginning, when I first get seated, make sure everyone is sitting at the table, safely, of course, with COVID. Blue ink or black ink, whatever is required, which we'll talk a little bit more later. I have their IDs in hand. The moment you are in possession of someone's ID, that is officially the start of the notarial process.
Okay.
So if they don't sign, they back out or whatever, you still should have some type of entry. Some of you in your states may not have a requirement for a journal. And I know Brenda, I'm going to speak for her because I'm pretty sure she's solid with me on this. It is best practice to have a journal if it's not a mandated requirement in your state. Your journals, your CYA. I'm very confident your attorney will agree with me if you're ever on the stand. But with that said, the moment you have that driver's license or passport or whatever you're allowed to use in your possession and you're physically examining, that is really the start where your journal needs to have some type of entry. Now, what I do from that point, I get the money from them, and then I start giving my disclosures. My name is Jake Burkhalter. I'm going to be here as a signing agent. My role is limited. I cannot give you any legal advice or consequential advice or anything along those lines. However, I do have phone numbers here to the signing service that I am working with, and they gave me that phone number for Jane Doe, the escrow officer, whatever it may be. But if you have your realtor or your loan officer on standby, we'll employ all resources that you need. But this is my limited role. Now, I've got your copies of your documents here. I'm going to hold on to them so we don't get these mixed up. But you will be, we'll leave these with you so you at least have them until you get your executed copies from whoever. And then I'll say, okay, most of these documents are not going to be notarized, but there are some that are. So I'm going to go ahead and put you on notice. Some are going to be where you're going to take an oath, and some of these you're just simply going to make an acknowledgement to me. As we go through these documents, I'll tell you which one has an acknowledgement, which one has a jurat. But the very end, we'll do our ceremonies at the very last part. That way they're on notice, because if like, you know what, the signature name affidavit, let's just say it has a jurat. They're going to swear to you under oath that all statements in that document are true and correct to the best of their knowledge. So you putting them on notice, if they're like, hey, I'm not signing this, then, you know, but some signing agents will sit there and do the oath on every one. I'm not going to say, I just think it's very cumbersome for you and especially for your signers, and they might make a complaint against you. But again, if your state says that, adhere to your state. Always give precedence to your state laws. I don't care what anybody says. I don't care what the hiring party says. I don't care what Jake and Brenda says, which we try to, you know, we preach that. But in social media, especially, if your state specifically says this, if you're not sure, contact your Secretary of State or your governing body. Get the answer you need. But again, generally speaking, put them on notice. Do your entire signing package presentation. At the very end, do your actual formal ceremonies. All right.
Jake,
Yes, ma'am.
I am going to deliver a question here real quick that has to do with documents. Laura asked, if you have a small stack of documents with questions that you have set aside and it's evening where no hiring company is there or no one's answering the phone, what is the best practice in that moment? So I'm going to tell her what I do.
Sure.
And you can jump on and say what you do. Laura, what I do is if there is a question, if there's a way to do it two ways, that's what I do. And then just have to promise them to get it. You know, I do it on their copy one way and then do it on the other copy the other way. And then tell them I will get them their copy, but this is the most expedient way to get it done, that I will send them a scanned copy of that back to them or something. Okay, so that's one way. Now, if they are not going to sign because of the problem, just try reading it out loud. If that's, you know, if it's not understanding, just read it out loud. Let them read it out loud. I know that sounds crazy, but it often gets me off of a high spot where I can go on. But just do the best you can. Jake?
I would move forward with any document they would let you sign, or that they agree to sign, rather. And then if you can't get a hold of anyone, when you status your signing or your completion, whether it's by email, phone call, voicemail, text, portal, whatever, be very specific, stating we try to reach loan officer, you know, real estate agent, title company, whatever you're allowed to contact, and say the borrowers or the signers refused to sign document A, document B, document C. Everything else was signed and will be returned in the package. Then you kind of shift that obligation from you. But definitely want to repeat, you know, what the signers, you know, well, the reasons why. But again, you can be very careful because everything's documented, that you don't want to put your spin on it. Like, oh, they hated their rate. They hate this lender and they didn't sign these documents, because they come back and say, I never said that. So just be very specific and matter of fact. And that's all you can do. You know, you can only do what you can do. So long as you make a reasonable attempt at contacting people and you document it, then I would just say move on. All right. Let's see.
Okay, so Jake, unsigned documents then stay with the package. They cannot keep any.
So that's best practice. So here's kind of how I answer it, because you're going to run to different scenarios. So if let's just say that I'm not signing, or if they're not signing any document, they're upset, whatever the case may be. Most hiring parties will tell you need to collect the originals if they started signing one or two, and the unsigned copies. You take them. I would tell you to hold on to them until you hear back from your hiring party, but usually you're going to shred them because they're no longer good. But don't shred them right away. Homeowners are like, I want a copy of these documents. I need them, whatever. Mm-hmm. You could just say things are probably going to change. The lender will be in touch with you. I'm required to shred these or whatever it will be. Don't put up a fight though. If they are insistent, you don't want to be the bad person. But generally speaking, loan documents are property of the lender, not the homeowner. They're going to tell you otherwise. So that's why you're going to see a lot of people who've done this a while say, hey, you need to collect everything and take it and wait for the hiring party. Now, a signer, not necessarily, let's just say they might be irate. If they're like, you leave those documents to me and I'll do this and I'll do that, well, you know what? You want to avoid a flame in the fire. The main thing is when you're done, status. Traditionally, I would bring the documents, wait for your directions, shred them accordingly, etc. However, the signer was very demanding that he have possession of these documents. So that's what happened. And then at least you told somebody. So,
Jake, if they pushed it, could they take could the borrower snap a picture of the document with their phone? I've never thought of that, but it just crossed my mind.
Yeah, they can. Because after all, if they sign the document, they get copies of it, right? So,
right.
and that's fine. And that actually might be a good thing to say, hey, do you want to take a picture with your phone? And then that way you have, in case you want to email it to your lender to say, hey, I'm confused. I think that's actually a good thing to offer. Don't do it for them, but let them do it. Because you're the peacemaker. And there's a good chance they'll send you back out when they come to a resolution on that specific document. So, and that's another thing to keep in the name of the game is try to leave with the good experience. At least they like you. Or maybe the doctor's just wrong and they're just so chillax and cool. Because then if you get the opportunity to meet them again, you know how to get there. You had to avoid the red light. You know what traffic's like. And your second go around will be a lot quicker most times. So,
cool.
all right.
Thank you.
Let's move right along. Absolutely.